Today I'm going to make a video because I feel like I need to talk about some life stuff that's going on. And I think there's a message and a lesson in what I've just gone through that is probably worth sharing. Yeah. I just got out of a cult that I'd been in for about 18 months. And getting out of it was, easy enough. I just stopped going, physically speaking. But getting out of it mentally was obviously where they get you. All right, so I don't even know really where to start with this whole thing. Okay, what got me into it? Well, initially, and this is part of what I'm realizing about the occult in general, is that the occult appeals to people like myself at the time who were seeking power through alternative means instead of just doing the basics in life that actually really move you ahead. In some ways it's like a cheat code. You're looking for cheat codes, you're looking for God mode. You're looking to have some kind of supernatural edge on this world we live in, rather than just doing what's in front of you and being aligned with God. You want to go and glorify your ego and your mind and start giving it power. I say you, and what I really mean is me at the time. So that's what led me, I guess, made me fertile ground for seeds like that to grow. Someone can end up believing in anything, really. It's not that hard to believe in something when you want to believe in it. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you think someone's going to teach you how to have like superpowers, like, let's say you can levitate, and you've got reason enough to believe that maybe they can levitate, or maybe you just want to believe they can levitate, but you want to levitate, right? You'll end up believing a whole bunch of shit they tell you, anything they want really, if you want to believe that you're getting the way to levitate. That they could tell you that it only comes through. I don't even want to go into details there. I hope you get the analogy. You can believe all kinds of shit if you want to believe. And I wanted to believe because, well, it's kind of cool, But also I wanted power. And I disguised it as the desire and seeking for wisdom. Ironically, the whole way along, God was with me, and I ended up squandering a lot of my grace with God by trying to lean into this stuff too much. Anyway, I'm not going to regret it. Maybe I'm going to make some videos talking about exactly what they believed in, and my now critiques on that way of thinking, particularly Gnostic way of thinking, and how that religious framework or belief system that we're in this fallen universe, fallen world that's created by an imperfect being or God, and that there isn't really sort of a real God, that there's just like there's an abstract God consciousness and a Christ consciousness, and the whole point of being here is to escape this realm which is led by the demiurge. You can basically think of it like the Matrix, which is like the OG kind of modern Gnostic framework in our culture. So yeah, I'll come out with my critiques of that and what that kind of framework does to the mind, and also why it's a really good foundation for a cult. Because the cult that I fell for Basically, when the mask started to slip, it was that I realized that this is all, it's talking about things from all these different religions. It's what you call syncretic. And, the things that it was talking about, like, were kind of the basis of the New Age canon of thought, albeit, higher level stuff, like not your kind of crystal shop stuff, but, what is sort of like your modern day esoteric New Age stuff, which I sort of then realized sort of stemmed off from mostly the Theosophists. Anyway, this one guy came up with, his whole school of thought that some of it seems ridiculous now, now that I think back on it. But came up with this whole school of thought around embodying this Christ-like consciousness and ascending this realm. And you don't really realize it. I didn't really realize at the start that this is all like this one guy's work. And, he's like plagiarized a lot of stuff from the actual Theosophists and all kinds of, God knows where. And some of it might be true, but ultimately this was all just the school of thought of this, what I now think is a madman. Yeah, so like the teacher at the school tells me that he's some kind of enlightened master and that he transcended his body. That should have been a red flag. I wanted to believe. Anyway, I found out later that he died of stomach cancer at the age of 60. Like, come on, bro. That doesn't really seem like the most holy way to go. Neither glorious nor esoteric. Stomach cancer, repression issues. All right. And, then another time I sort of towards the end, I never actually heard his voice because he died somewhere around the 70s and there was a few recorded lectures of his. And for the first time I heard his voice, and he's talking in Spanish, and it was the most like sort of rough, demonic, sickening voice I'd heard in a long time, or can even sort of think back to. It was kind of like listening to it's like listening to like a Hitler type rant, but it had a little something that made me real uneasy with it. So I'm starting to piece some of these things together, and my girlfriend, my now fiance, sort of talked some sense into me, just with her own questions. It's she's pretty good like that. But the seeds of doubt was planted, and the mask started to fall off. And when it fell off, I was just kind of like, what have I been in for the last 18 months? And how did I get there? Yeah, it comes down to giving your power away. So when you pay attention to something, you're paying like your greatest currency, your mental resource. There's a lot of power in what we actually give our attention to. That's why in the Bible, God's always asking for our attention, our love, our prayers. He wants to commune with us, and where we pay our attention to is where our energy goes, and that's what we're building relationships with in our life. And in this day and age, we listen to a lot of. There's so many personalities out there that. All throughout the internet, YouTube, all social media platforms, it's just glorifying these people, these talking heads that have their own little show and their own little world and their own little cults. So there's kind of this nature within us that wants to believe in something, and now that we have access to all these people and all this information, it's like there's a million micro cults forming from every different influencer. Even though we're an influencer, they're having influence over people. It's like their own little micro cult. So, we're all kind of being micro cult farmed. And why, if there was a lot of wisdom out there, it might not be such a bad thing. If this was all like people telling you to try out woodworking or something. but a lot of it is self-glorifying. Like they're glorifying themselves. It's all about their little life and how you can support their life. And they write these little courses on how you can live like them, even though it's probably not how they got to do what they're doing. So there's a bit of like a value fallacy in what they're offering. And you sort of lights up all your dopamine pathways. You feel like you're being a part of something. You feel like you're part of some kind of group, and you're going to get all these skills. And then maybe you do some of these courses or whatever, and you sort of realize that there's actually like not much fruit on those trees. There's not really much there for the picking. And I don't know, you kind of wasted your time maybe. I don't know, I haven't stuck around in one of these groups for too long, but I have sampled some different groups, and like mini type cults. And I think we really have to come back to our own relationship and connection with God, and even just our own like map of what we're to do with our life, and be talking with a few good people in our life. You're lucky if you have a few good people that you can trust, that actually have your best interests at heart. They might tell you the things you don't want to hear, or they might seem sometimes like they don't believe in you or whatever, but people that can just give you some like grounded advice in your life, that's really quite underrated. And you're not going to get that kind of advice from these guys on the internet. That being said, there's some good people out there. There's some good information out there. Like I actually do find a lot of value from some of the people I listen to. But there's the whole cult vibe that a lot of influencers end up building or cultivating without whether they realize it or not. And anything that's not like born of God's will can be potentially like demonic or evil. All right. Now I know this is taking a little bit of a dark turn, but people are kind of fooled by the power they're given and their own ego, right? And they start listening to their own bullshit and get this like mythomania about themselves, and they start thinking that they're all that. And I think the ego is like the way that the devil kind of whispers in your ear. And I think there's all kinds of like energies influencing these influences. And they end up doing like they're like henchmen for the Antichrist. They end up kind of steering people in some directions just based on like their urges. They're not even like that sentient. Like they don't even really, like they think that they're on some other level, but really that something's got them and is working through them and through their audience, and people are paying their attention and following along with where that's leading them. All right, so it's a lot of people being led astray by these influences. And the things you look for, the things I now look for is someone glorifying themselves, or are they glorifying God? And are they actually glorifying something and a genuine creation that is bigger than them, or is it just their own ego that's coming through it? Is it like an act of selflessness? And I don't mean like vain selflessness, like fake selflessness, like those like giving burgers away to homeless people, slop videos, but genuine selflessness. Someone just gives pure raw wisdom, or creates something for the sake of sharing it. You can kind of sense when it's coming from the heart or whether it's coming from the ego. There's a lot of cults out there, man. So bring your attention back into your life. Focus on your world So don't get jealous of what these other people have, because if you sort of really saw the full picture of what's going on for them and what will go on for them down the line, you'll see that that's probably not a life you want to live. Another thing now that's probably a topic for the video is for another video is does it feel like all of our like former heroes are now just kind of falling? People that were once revered on the internet and these spaces, like Jordan Peterson, and I don't know if Liver King was out. Oh, he had his time in the sun. And then there's all these like new guys that are like rising and falling, within a couple of years too, like this influencer type. And then some people that have contributed some good stuff are kind of like shitting the bed and croaking it publicly. And for some of them it's really bad, and some of them not as much. These are guys that like aren't necessarily living within integrity, and they're falling out with that hard. So yeah, you don't want to live the life of a lot of these influencers. It doesn't seem to work out well for a lot of them. For the ones that does work out well are the ones that can actually just let God into their life more, and are actually connected with something that's greater than them. They're connected with a living spirit, a living Holy Spirit that works through them, and that's what a lot of the sharings can be. So yeah, word of warning: take back your attention and your focus in life, and you'll actually notice that there's a positive change. Like you'll probably have more energy, and you won't be so bogged down with whatever kind of framework and worldview these guys are trying to push into your heads. That's the other thing. Like, they want you to think like them, or whatever's controlling them wants you to think like that. So there's a constant kind of programming that's going on as well. When you break those programs, they kind of make you feel stiff and rigid, and they burn up a lot of energy in your life. And they don't, like, by your fruits a tree will be known, or you judge a tree by its fruits. Now, what's the fruits that this belief or this person or this stuff is bringing into your life? That's how you can tell whether or not it's for you or not. Like during my time in this cult, I developed a pretty negative way of looking at the world. I got a little bit sort of like semi-nihilistic, not really nihilistic, because they kind of make you think that if you do it their way, that you will make progress. But I got actually really down on myself, thinking that I was a shit person because I couldn't do these things and stick to this rigid kind of sexual regime. It's not like super weird. It's what they call it, sexual tantra. I'm opening a can of worms now. But it's it's like monogamous sexual stuff. It's not like you're going into some place with them. Basically semen retention. It's like semen retention, but like next level sexual alchemy, semen retention. And they make you think that they teach you that every time you ejaculate, you're like losing your soul. So you can imagine. I've had some good times on semen retention, but to feel like you're going to lose your soul if you ejaculate, that's just some next level manipulation and pressure. All right, so that's like one example of what I'm talking about. When you clear that shit out of your life and you come back to the Lord, you know what? There's a verse. Do I get the Bible? His burden is light and his yoke is simple. Something like that. If you're burdened in life, and if you're burdened by someone's school or thoughts or beliefs, just give it away to Jesus, man. Like, he takes that burden off of your back, And his burden's a lot lighter. Like when you believe and you're connected with the Holy Spirit and Jesus, there's a lightness of being that comes with that. It'll take away your anxiety, and probably think a little clearer or a lot clearer. It really feels quite nice to come back home to your heart and to have the Lord in your heart. All right, might have caught you a little bit off guard with that, but it's true. And if you don't believe me, run it as an experiment. Pray sincerely and ask for the Lord to be in your heart. Use Christ's name. All right, that way there's no confusion of who you're calling your Lord. All right, there's a lot of power in that. And as someone who's dabbled in the occult for a few years now, I see that the true power is in our hearts, having Christ in our hearts and living like a true Christian. All right, maybe we'll leave it at that. Stay vital, guys.